Welcome to the course Data Warehousing and Data Mining. Our today's topic is difference between operational database and data warehouse. So we have seen data warehouse, how in data warehouse we are going to create. Now we'll see what is operational database there, and we also will see what are the difference between the operational database and as well as with the data warehouses. We'll also cover the advantages and what are the different applications of data warehouse. Myself, Priyanka Gupta, I am working as assistant professor in Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Data Science at IARE, Hyderabad. So let's start. I'm going to cover the topics are operational database. What is operational database basically? What is data warehousing in broad way? We'll see the difference between operational database and data warehouse. What are the different applications of data warehouse? And what are the advantages of data warehouse? Yes. So what is basically operational database? Operational database is the source for the data warehouse. Basically, the data in the data warehouse, from where the data is coming, that is a source. From the source, the data is coming. So the data operational database is the source for data warehouse. That is nothing but the source of data warehouse. So in data operational database, basically it includes detailed information, that is having the detailed information used to run day-to-day life. What are the operations are there in the database? So that is basically is going to update day by day. What are the different detailed information are there for operations? The data that is going to frequently change as update. So there will be update in the database. So the data is always continuously that is changing. So as per the nature, the data is going to be changed in every second. So while we are going to frequently update the data will be the operational data, right? So the changes will be made frequently, and the current value of the that is going to reflect the current value of the what are the last transaction is there. So because of the updatation, what is the recent changes are there, that will be reflected by the system while we are going to write any query. So the result will be displayed as a last transactions. So there are basically that is mainly designed for the high volume of the data transactions. So if there will be the huge database, there will be huge transactions of data. In terms of that, we can say the financial data. We can say if the some of the companies having the other transactional data, so that will come under the operational database. So for this, the nature will be for that there will be the huge amount of data for which we are going to use the some of the queries. So that is basically designed for the huge database. The operational database management system, that is also we can call as OLTP. The full form of OLTP is online transactional processing database. So the because that is basically a transactional database. So in the terms of data warehouse, that will be called as a online transactions processing database, right? So that will be used to manage dynamic data in real time. In the that is online data that is updating at frequently. That is nothing but the real time data. So an operational database query that is going to allow to read and modify the operations. So as an end user, while in the company, in any industry, in any business model, when the database architects, we can say any database manager is going to write a query. He is going to write a SQL query. So after that, he wants some result. He want to show some result at the end. So there in this type of operational database, there can be the possibility the user can read the data as well as he can modify the data also. So there will be chance to read and modify the data in the operational database. So it is basically the operational database basically used for to maintain the online transactions. What are the online transactions? Like in the financial data, in the we can say in the bank side data, what are the transactional queries are going on, what are the transactions are going on, that will be maintained by the operational database. So after that, it will also be record as an integrity in the multiple access environment. So what is basically the multiple access environment? Because the data is online, that is live, so the data will be stored onto the server side. So the server can be a many type, that can be a many that can be like on the one server, it not be like stored, it will go to the one by one different servers. So that is a multiple data environment. So the transaction data is going to from the one bank to server, it is going to be stored. So that is basically while the data will be maintained and stored onto the directly on the server. So basically this type of environment is basically the multiple access environment. For any type of operational database that will be constructed for some of the well-known tasks, that is not a because the operational database is a very important data, that is a transactional data that will be used as a real-time data. So a well-structured we can say a well-structured task will be there, well-structured documentation will be there to store that type of data. What are the different queries are there, what are the different files are there, so that will be stored in the form of task and workload. So we can say that will be stored to search as a particular record. We can say we can search that particular record in the form of indexing, in the form of we can say particular that some indexes. So that particular operational database will be stored as a important well-known task and workload. Operational database is going to support the concurrent processing of multiple transactions. So as we know, there will be the that is basically the transaction data, there will be the multiple transactions. So as per that, the concurrency will happen. So what is the concurrency means? What are the different changes are there in the database that will be maintained by the concurrency control. So basically that type of processing will be done by on the multiple transactions. So the concurrency control and recovery mechanism will be there, that will be required for this operational database, while to ensure the data is robust, data is safe and secure, and if there is a consistency of the database, so that will be maintained by the concurrency control and some of the recovery methods. So the data will be protected and secured by the these are the two of the control and methods. So that will also ensure that data is safe, data is not corrupted, data is very that is saved properly or not. So that will all taken care by these are the two mechanisms. Now, what is data warehousing? While we are going to difference between these operational database and data warehouse. So basically the data warehouse term that came by that is first coined by the Bill Inman in 1990 concept of hard computing. So he have published this data warehousing concept in 1990 in his particular writings, concept of hard computing. So a data warehouse by the Bill Inman, he said that a data warehouse is a subject oriented, that is basically a subject oriented Why we are calling subject oriented? So that will be the data will be the based on the some of the particular domains. This will be the particular from the some industry, some business industry. So that is subject oriented, domain oriented. So integrated, the data warehouse is integrated, time variant and non-volatile collection of data. So data will be integrated, data will be at one place, is stored at one place as data warehouse. We can say small parts at data marts. Data will be time variant. So data will change by the time, and the non-volatile collection of data. So that the electricity and memory will not affect the data if that is saved on the server side. So a data warehouse is basically the subject oriented, integrated, time variant and non-volatile collection of data by the terms of Bill Inmon. So after that, the Ralph Kimball, he provided a much simpler definition of data warehouse. So now the term comes data warehousing. While we are going to see the difference between the operational database and as well as with the data warehouse. So we will see the history of data warehouse, how the data warehouse term came, who have invented that, what is basically the data warehouse, is that the database we have used in the traditional methods, conventional methods. So we will see about that. So the term data warehouse that was first invented by the Bill Inmon in 1990. Concept of hard computing. He have written a paper about the data warehouse term. So he has said in that paper, that publication, he have said a data warehouse is subject oriented, integrated, time variant and non-volatile collection of data. So here the term came, what we mean by subject oriented. Subject oriented. Okay, so subject oriented is nothing but that is basically the data will be towards the some of the subject, some of the domain knowledge. Basically, the data warehouse is a collection of data. So there will be some type of data. So basically that will be the some of the business data, some of the transactional data, operation data. So that is a subject oriented, right? What is integrated? Integrated. So the data will be stored onto the data warehouse. In terms of data warehouse, data will be integrated. Data will be at one place. While the end user, anyone is going to use the data, that will be stored at one place. We call as data warehouse in terms of data warehousing. So in the data warehouse also small parts we can call as data marts. So we can also call the data can be data marts, but it will be integrated. That is a small part that will data marts are basically the one business model that is particularly based on the sum of the business. So a small part of data warehouse is data mart. So the data will be integrated onto the data mart that will, as well as on the data warehouse. What is time variant? Time variant. So the data is going to be changed, that is frequently changing, that is going to be frequently changed, but that will be stored at one place, right? So that will be time variant. Time can affect the data. So, but at the end, the data will be collected at a one place, right? So what is non-volatile collection of data? The collection of data is nothing but the data warehouse. What is non-volatile? So non-volatile means the electricity in the memory that will not, the data will be not affected by any of the changes. So data will be safe. Data will be stored at safe place in the server. After that, after the Bill Inmon invented the data warehousing term, then the Ralph Kimball came. He came into the light because he provided a much simpler example, much simpler definition for the data warehouse. So what he said? He said the data warehouse is a copy of transaction data specifically structured for query and analysis. So he have given this definition in the terms of transactional data. So that there can be in the data warehouse, the data can be of any type. So basically he is trying to say the data warehouse is a copy of transaction data that will be changed up to the time, by the time. So data is structured also, and that will be used by the end users in the form of query. He can write the query, he can get the result, and after that he is getting the result, he can do the analysis for the data. He can apply some of the methods on the data what he has fetched from the writing the query. So basically the end user, he is going to give his what are the queries are there. He is going to write the query in the syntax in DMQL. So basically he'll write in a well structured format, and then he is going to analyze the data. So the Ralph Kimball said the data warehouse is a copy of transaction specifically structured for the query and analysis part. So this is a functional view of data warehouse. He's telling this is a functional view of data warehouse. The Kimball did not address. He have given the definition, but he have not said how the data warehouse is built like Emondit. Rather than he focused on the functionality of the data warehouse. So a third person came. He was Emondit. So he has given some other definition, but the Kimball, he have not told how the data warehouse is going to build, right? So rather he focused on the what is the data warehouse functionality are there, what are the different functions of the data warehouse is there. So the data warehouse, it is going to help the analyst. He is going to help the data warehouse analyst to take the informed decisions, because he is going to write queries, he is going to get some result. So because he's want to do some analysis, want to do some predictions, want to do some future analysis, so he's writing the query. So the data warehouse is a for the data warehouse analyst to take the informed decisions. He is going to take decisions after he'll do analysis. So in a organization, so for any organization, he is going to take the decision by the writing query and getting the information from the query. The data warehouse provide us generalized and consolidated data. So basically, after writing a query, that will be based on the some of the specific consolidated data. So data will be generalized, that will be normalized, and that will be consolidated in the multi-dimensional view. So the data will be stored in data warehouse in the form of data cube, that is multi-dimensional data cube. So for while we are going to apply some of the operations on that, we are going to write some queries for that. The data we will get, that will be the very, very generalized, and that will be the consolidated part of the data that we can see in the while we are writing the query for that. So the data warehouse is going to provide the online analytical processing tools. So we have seen in the operational database, that was basically based on the OLTP, online analytical transactional data, and here the data warehouse, that is basically based on the online analytical processing operations, processing servers. So that will going to use the some of the tools, OLAP tools for that. While the analyst end user is going to fetch some of the data. So the data warehouse that helps us in an interactive and effective analysis. So the end user, the analyst is going to write it. It's going to fetch some of the result, writing the query. The data is having the interactive and effective. The data we will get, so that we can use that for the effective analysis and as well as for the interactive visualizations. So we can see that type of data in the form of visualizations also, in the data that will be stored into that some of the multi-dimensional cubes. The data warehouse analysis, that is going to give the result in data generation and data mining. So what is the use of data warehouse? So we are going to use the data in the form of, to get, the user is going to get some of the analysis for that, so that data will be generalized, and the end user is going to use the data for data mining also. After that, he can apply some of the methods, and rather he'll get some trends and pattern for the future analysis. So the data warehouse will be kept separately from the OLTP databases. So that was the operational database. That was basically the transactional database, and the data warehouse, that is nothing but the analytical processing. We can only apply the some of the operations on that. We can analyze the data. So that is basically main difference between these of the two databases. The data warehouse can have the operational database, but the operational database cannot be data warehouse. So the data will be stored into the data warehouse in any form, but there will be the basically the database that will be related as to the transactional data. So basically that is going to use the tools, OLAP tools. So a data warehouse, we can say that is a database which is kept separately from the organization's operational database. So what I have said, the operational database is nothing but that will be used for the some of the particular databases, but the data warehouse, that will be separate from that. So data warehouse system, that is going to help in the integration of diversity of the different applications. So in the field of different applications, the data warehouse is having the capability, because the data can be of any type, so data will be integrated at one place in data warehouse. So for the different applications, we can use that data, we can fetch that data. A data warehouse system, that is going to help in consolidated historical data analysis. So in the operational database, that the data is live data, that data is operational data, that will be stored, that will be time variant, but in the data warehouse, the data will be stored at one place, that can be historical data also. So on the basis of that, we can do the analysis, the user can do the analysis. So we can have a good consolidated historical data analysis for that. So that data warehouse is going to help for that also. Although the data warehouse is going to help executives in the organization, they are going to organize, they are going to understand, they are going to use their data, what they have stored in the data warehouse, to take some of the important decisions. So they are going to use that data to do the analysis, and after that they can take some of the rather effective decisions for the same. The data warehouse is going to possess the consolidated historical data, as we have seen. So that is going to help the organization to analyze their business also. So in any type of business, in any type of industry that is related to business, the data that was stored into the data warehouse, that they can have the good consolidated view of that. That can they can see the visualization of the data. So from the what we have stored in the data warehouse, so that decision, on the basis of the result, they are going to take decision. So they are going to help their decision also, their organization and business also. So they can have the comparison from the different businesses, and they can do the better. They can apply the different strategy for that, so that their business can increase in terms of comparison with the other organization, other industry. So that data warehouse is going to help in the terms to analyze their business also. So the data warehouse that is having the no frequent updating. So that because there is a stored data, that is the historical data, so no frequent changes will be there. So in the data warehouse, there will be not frequent changes, rather the user is going to use the data. In the terms of operational database, that there will be the frequent changes for that, because that is basically the financial data, that is the live data, there will be changes. So here we will see the difference between the operational database and data warehouse. So some major differences are there on the terms of some features. So we will see the features, and we will see the difference into the operational database as well as the data warehouse. So here the feature is in the terms of users, who are the users of operational database and for data warehouse. So the users will be for operational database, there will be the clients, there will be the clerks, there will be the IT guys who are going to use that operational data in terms of their query. In the data warehouse, there will be the managers, data warehouse managers, data warehouse executive, and data warehouse analysts, who are going to take the data for their analysis. In the terms of system orientation, the operational database is the very customer oriented. So the data will be based on the live data, that will be based on the transaction data, so that the updatation will be there. So that is basically the customer centric, customer oriented. The data will be updated day by day, hour by hour. So there will be there can have some updatation and operations on that. But in the terms of data warehouse, that is market oriented, because the what we can say, the different business domain people, different industry people, they are going to implement the data warehouse, and then they are going to analyze that data in terms of their business. So that will be the market oriented. They have to do the analysis for to compare from the other industry, other we can say the other customers, other companies. So they have to do the analysis, they have to take the different trends and patterns, what are other companies are doing. In terms of that, they can grow their business in that terms. They can the data warehouse is decision oriented. Obviously they are going to take some good decisions on the basis of he have to compare the data from the other organization. In the terms of data, the operational data is current data. So that is basically that is nothing but the transactional data, and that it's going to be based on the transactions. That is the operational data. So that is having the current data. But in data warehouse, data will be stored at one place in data warehouse. That can be that we call as a historical data. In the terms of database design, the operational database is using the ER model. ER model is in the on the basis of ER model, the data will be stored. But in the data warehouse, there will be the model, star schema, and snowflake. So on the basis of that, the data will be stored in the data warehouse. In the terms of view, in the operational database, that will focus on the current data, that is live data. It can be used for the same organization. But in the on the other hand, in the data warehouse, that will focus onto the multiple versions of data. So what is basically the multiple versions of data? So in data warehouse, the data will be stored as a historical, right? That can be historical data. So the data can be multiple. There can be the redundancy. So the data that can change also some of the ages, some of the time. So there will be the instances of data. So there will be the different versions that has been saved over the time. So that will basically focus on the basically time, that is time oriented. So any type of business that is going to use the data on the basis of time variant. So the while as example, we can say, if any industry, any business industry, they are going to take the decision for this year 2022 in the month of April. So they have to be they have to take the all the data on the basis of what are the data is there in the month April. So that can be the different versions of data. So the data can be of different heterogeneous sources. So the data will be stored from the different places. So data can be of any form. On the basis of volume, in the operational database, the data will be not very large. So because that is updating, and that is the end user is going to use that data, so that there will be there will be no storage of data, that there will be the less amount of data. But on the other hand, in the data warehouse, that will be the huge amount of data, as all the data is storing at one place. So that will be the there will be the large amount of data in a one place. On the basis of database access, that operational databases will be short, atomic transaction in nature, and that are having the ACID property. So that is basically based on the traditional databases, that was relational databases. So there are some of the ACID property are there. So there will be these features will be there, that will be the sort, atomic transactions, and ACID property. On the other hand, the data warehouse, that will have the read-only access with complex queries. So while the end user, any manager, executive of data warehouse is going to write some query. So there will be the after that he'll get some of the query. So only he can read, he cannot access the data. He can only check whether what are the data is there, what are the some part of data is there. On that basis of that, he can do analysis. So for that, we are telling that will be the read only access for the huge amount of data while he is writing the complex queries. On the terms of operations, the operational databases, that will having the index and hashes on primary key. So the data that will be stored into the operational database, for the query, for to fetching the that type of data, there will be the indexing of data, there will be the hashing of data. On the basis of that, the data will be we can say the executive is going to fetch the data. In the terms of data warehouse, there will be the lot of scans, there will be the methods to there will be the operations apply on that particular data, we can say data cubes. In the terms of what are the different records are there in the operational database, that can be of tens of the time, but in the data warehouse, that the data can be of millions in terms of storage of data. In the terms of database size, what is the database size is there in operational database? So that can vary to 100 MB to 100 gigabyte. So that amount of data that can be stored into the operational database, but rather in the data warehouse, the data can be more than 100 GB. a terabyte, a petabyte, more than that. So the data will be a huge amount of data there. In the On the basis of priority, the data in the operational database that will having the high priority, because that is the live data, that is the operational data. So high priority will be there to use that data. But in the terms of data warehouse, the high flexibility will be there. So the user can he can access the data as per their need. On the basis of metric, the transactions throughout will be in operational databases. But in the data warehouse, the query response time will be there, while we have to see the only what are the different data is there for analysis. So there will be the query time. While we are writing the query, complex query, what is the time it is taking? After that, the user can get the response for that. So here some major differences we can say in the broader ways. So in the operational database, the operational systems are generally designed to support the high transaction volume processing. But in the data warehousing, the data warehouse system is generally designed to support the high volume. So high volume analytical processing, that is transactional processing, that is analytical processing. So because we are going to apply the some of the operations on that. The operational database system that focuses the data in while data is going to in, but in the data warehouse, that focuses while the data is going to out, how the data is going to out. In the operational database, data will be stored with a functional processing, functional orientation. So there will be a structured and functional orientation to store the data. But in data warehouse system, the data will be stored into the subject orientation. That is basically the we can say the domain oriented. So data will be stored as a subject oriented. In the operational database, the performance can be low because of the analysis of the query. So that will depend on to the query while the user is going to write. So if there will be the complex query, obviously the time will be taken to get the result. So the performance will be vary for that. Performance can be low although for that. But in the data warehouse, the performance will be high because the data is stored at one place. So we have to write the query and we can get the result for that. The operational database, that is using the transactional processing, as we have seen, it is using the OLAP, that is analytical processing. The operational system represents the current transactions, current data. In the data warehouse, that will be the historical data. The data in operational database, that data will be within the organization, within the operational system, that is going to update frequently, regularly, right? But in the data warehouse, the data within a data warehouse will be the non-volatile, meaning the new data is added, the old data will not erased. So the data can be of multiple versions here. In the data operational database, the complex data structures will be there, while it is basically the transactions data. But in the data warehouse, the multi-dimensional data structures will be there to access the data. So there will have the data cubes to access the data from the one place. So what are the different applications of data warehouse? So basically the data warehouse applications is going to help the business executives to organize, analyze, and then they can use their data for the decision making. So the data will be basically based onto the business model, different industry. So for that is going to help the different business people, so they can analyze the data from the data warehouse. The data, the servers as a sole part of a plan, executive access, we can say closed loop. So there will be the feedback system for the enterprise management. So because the data is stored there on the server, the on the basis of that data, there will have we can take some decision while the data is stored. So for the executive or data warehouse managers, they are going to take some decisions, and they can plan some executive access and feedback system for that. The data warehouse applications is widely used in the industry. So what are the different domain can be there, different industry will be there. So the data warehouse can be used into the financial services, that can be used for banking services, that can be used for consumer goods. What are the retail sectors are there in their business also, the data warehouse can be there. For the controlled manufacturing, in the manufacturing industry. So these are the different industry where the data warehouse applications can be there. What is the advantages of data warehousing? We will see. So the data warehouse potentially returns the investment and delivers enhanced for the business intelligence. So the data will be for basically the data is going to take the decision for the business model. So that will be the based on the business intelligence. They are going to do the analysis for to take some decisions. So there will be the intelligence part. So the implementation of a data warehouse requires a huge investment in lakh, and we can say in crores. So because that is going to give the high return. So on the basis of that, the implementation of data, what are the different servers can be there, what are the systems can be there, what will be the tools are there. So that will be the there will be the huge investment for that. But that type of data warehouse in the organization, that is going to help to take the strategic decisions based on the data, what is stored as a historic data, and then the organization can improve their results in terms of other competitors, and various processes like marketing segmentation. They can use this inventory management. They can get their sales figures, the sales trend patterns. So on the different parts, they can apply the data warehouse. So they can take the advantage for that. On the basis of competitive advantages, as we know, the data is previously unknown. The data is unknown also, the data is unavailable also. So that will be available into the data warehouse some of the time. So on the basis of that, the decision makers can access that data to make decisions to gain the competitive advantage. So because they don't know what is data is there previously stored there, that is unavailable there. So on the basis of what data is there, present data, on the basis of that, they can take the decisions to gain from their competitors. The data warehouse that is going to save the time, as the data comes from the multiple sources, different sources, data sources, that is available into the integrated place, that is data warehouse. So the business users can access that data from one place because they are going to save their time on the basis of that. So on the basis of save times, there is no need to retrieve data from the multiple sources. So because the data will be stored at one place, so there will be the data will not the query will not take much more time to execute the query. So the data warehouse that is going to give the better intelligence, better enterprises intelligence in terms of their business, because it is going to improve the customer service and productivity. So for the productivity, for the manufacturing, for their what are the customer services they are providing, what is the competition are there, they can get the uh, get the data for that, and they can analysis that data, so they can have the better business in terms of their competitors. So in the data warehouse, the data will be the better high quality. So data will be the high quality because the data in the data warehouse, that will be cleaned, that will be transferred into the desired format. So there will be the data quality. So in terms of data management, the data will be the data warehouse managers, they are going to clean the data, they are going to transform the data, they are going to apply some of the methods to store the data in a proper format, so that the data will be in better format, high quality format. So the data will be very very secure, and that will be very very useful. So that was all about the operational database. We can say the data warehouse, what are the different features are there in terms of we can have the better understanding about the operational database, or we can say conventional database, and what is basically the data warehouse in terms of other sources of data. So we have seen the differences also of data warehouse and operational database. We have seen what are the different areas, what are the different domains, industry are there, whether we are going to apply the data warehouse, and what are the different advantages when any industry people, any business model is going to implement a data warehouse. So that was all for the today's session, today's lesson. So we will meet in the next session. Thank you for watching.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.